Hi guys, welcome back. I'm retiring at 47 years old after being made redundant for the second time in my career. In this video, I wanted to quickly go through 5 reasons that you should consider retiring early. I realise that not everybody can retire early, but it makes sense for you to start getting yourself into that position as soon as you can. So let's get straight into it. Reason number 1 for retiring early: you don't know how long you've got left to live. A good friend of mine who I worked with for years and years, he retired at the age of 65 years old. He only got about 6 months into his retirement and he was involved in a serious car accident. What happened was he was crashed into by a drunk driver. It was a very serious accident. This had actually made the national newspapers a few years ago. Unfortunately, my friend didn't survive his injuries. He was airlifted to hospital and 2 days later he died in hospital. He never got the chance to even say goodbye to his family and friends. I was completely just blown away by it. I was absolutely shocked. My friend was, my friend was 65 years old. He'd only just retired. He'd just started to collect his state pension and he just started to collect his private pensions. He'd not long become a grandfather as well, so he just welcomed his first couple of grandchildren into the world. He'd worked for close to 50 years and he never really got the chance to enjoy the fruits of his labour. I've also got another story as well. I was working with a guy in his late 20s. He suddenly went off work sick right in the middle of a big project. I found out afterwards that he developed thyroid cancer. The cancer went into remission and he came back to work and he seemed absolutely fine. A couple of years later, the cancer came back really aggressively, and within 6 months of the cancer returning, he was gone. He just couldn't fight it anymore. And he was in his early 30s when he died. I think he was something like 32 or something like that. He never even got married. He never even got the chance to start a family, and his life was just ripped away. So these were a couple of stories that affected me. I'm sure most of you guys watching this channel have had similar stories of people who have passed away well before the time. You have to ask yourself, when you come across situations like that, is it really worth working all those extra years? If you've got the means to retire, it makes sense to do that now. And if you haven't got the means to retire, it makes sense to start working on building up those investments and building up those means to retire. Those 2 stories, as I say, personally affected me. And it made me think, you don't really know how long you've got left. So it makes sense to give up working as soon as you can. What you're doing by continuing to work and work and work, you're eating up the best years of your life. In a lot of cases doing something that you probably don't even enjoy. So that was reason number 1. Reason number 2 to retire early: you spend something like 40 hours a week with work colleagues for something like 48 weeks a year. That's a lot of time. On top of that, you're spending probably something like, on average I would say, for most people, 10 to 15 hours a week commuting. You've also got things like lunch hours where you go into the office and you have to spend that forced mandatory hour lunch sitting around the office, and you don't get paid for that. Essentially that lunch hour is unpaid time, and it's more time that you're spending with your colleagues, more time that you're spending at work, and you're not spending that time with your family. So I always ask people this: wouldn't you rather spend that 40 to 50 hours a week doing things that you want to do? Wouldn't you rather spend that time with family members? That's a lot of time to spend with people who ultimately, some of them might be your friends, but ultimately, if you get made redundant from your job, which is exactly what's happening to me in less than a week's time, I'm probably never going to see most of those people again. But my family are always going to be there. It makes far more sense to retire early if you can and spend as much time as possible with the people that you really love, i.e. your family. I want to spend as much time seeing my children growing up as I possibly can. And I'm spending so many hours in work. I'm spending probably 50 hours a week with work colleagues that's time I'm not getting with my children. By the time you get up early in the morning, you're commuting to work, you're sitting on the train or you're driving, you're stuck in traffic jams. That's all time that you're not getting to spend with your children. That's time that you're not seeing your kids growing up. It makes sense that you should want to spend more of that time with family. My dad has just turned 70 years old. He suffered from a number of serious health issues in the last 10 years. I don't know how long he's got left. It makes sense for me to spend more time with my dad doing things like fishing, which he enjoys. I've never been fishing with him. Maybe having a coffee with him on the canal side, wrapping up warm and spending that father and son time together. And I realised that I really haven't done that enough. And now that I'm seeing my dad's health deteriorating, I'm thinking to myself, well, he might not have long left. My mum is in her late 60s now. I probably see her maybe 3 or 4 times a month. And I don't really think that's enough. And I think most people who work are like this. What happens is you're spending that 50 hours a week working and commuting, and you get home and you're tired from the commute or whatever, and you just want to eat a quick meal. You might want to lounge around on the sofa, and then you go to bed, and then you get up and you're repeating the same cycle again 5 days a week. And some people are working weekends, some people are working Saturdays and Sundays. And what happens is your family get neglected, your family and friends get neglected. You're spending all that time working, and then you're spending a lot of your weekend, a good portion of your weekend, doing all those chores that build up through the weekend, things that you just have to get done. Horrible jobs like cleaning the toilet and things like that, things that nobody wants to do. I've got 3 brothers. I barely see my brothers. We lived together for years, we grew up for years, and now I barely see them. Once my parents and my brothers are gone, and my kids are growing up, I'm going to regret the time I spent working when I could have been spending that time with family. Isn't it worth cutting back some of that time that you work so you can at least spend that with people that you love? Reason number 3 for retiring early: you only have a limited amount of good health left in your life. I'm in my late 40s. As I've mentioned, I'm 47 years old at the moment. My health is really, really good. I go to the gym at least 4 times a week. I do weight training. I do a lot of hiking. I absolutely love hiking. I love driving out to the mountains and doing all day hikes. So I can hike for 14, 15, 16 miles easily, and I don't even break a sweat, so I'm super, super fit. I eat a pretty healthy diet. I'm not completely teetotal. I will have an occasional drink now and again, but I've cut it down by 95%. Once you get into your 60s and 70s, your health isn't going to be as good. Your body just ages. Your body just ages. It's unavoidable. It happens to everybody. You're probably going to spend at least a portion of your retirement with some health issues, and some of those health issues are going to prevent you doing some of the things that you're doing today. If you can retire from work as soon as possible, it makes sense to do those activities you enjoy while you're still able to do them. Now, I can see this in my dad. My dad became seriously ill in his 50s. He had to give up work early. He's nowhere near as mobile as he used to be. He's put a lot of weight on due to his health issues. And I look at my dad and think, I may also have health issues. I may not be able to do the things that I can do now while I'm in good health. It makes sense for me to enjoy my good health now before I get too old and I start to see health issues developing. Reason number 4 to retire early: once you retire, you completely avoid the effects of work stress on your mental and physical health. As you get older, your body becomes less able to deal with the effects of stress and long hours. And if you continue to expose yourself to workplace stress and workplace long hours, what's going to happen is you're going to start to trigger off chronic health conditions. I've seen this many, many times with people I've worked with where they've been working long hours, they've been working in highly stressed positions, they've started to go grey overnight, they've started to develop health issues. So if you leave work as early as you can, that means you're avoiding all that toxic work stress, you're avoiding those long hours, and you're preserving your good health for your retirement. I worked with this guy for years and years. He was a senior manager. He was in a very, very high stress position. He just went out like a light like that, massive heart attack. That senior manager role had increased his stress levels through the roof. He was pretty lucky, to be honest, to survive that heart attack. How many of you guys have seen colleagues just, 1 minute they're there, the next they're rushed off for an ambulance? I've seen it at least half a dozen times in my 25-year career. A really good friend of mine worked in a London investment bank, highly stressful environment. My friend said to me, his alarm clock would go off, he'd wake up and he'd have a headache. And he'd say to me, this was even before I'd got in the shower, this was even before I'd had my breakfast. And it was the stress of the environment he was working in. Someone would literally suffer a heart attack on the office floor and they'd be stretchered out. And my friend said to me, you rarely saw anyone working in investment banking in their 50s because their hearts just can't take the strain. My friend worked there for 10 years, and at the end of the 10 years he said, I just had to get out. He said, I had to give it up because the stress levels were just extreme. He was on something like a 6-figure salary, and this was 20 years ago, so he was on a lot of money, and he took something like a 60 or 70% pay cut just to get out of investment banking. It was that stressful. Hearing those stories from a friend made me want to retire even earlier before stress starts really taking its toll on me. So if you can, you need to make that effort to retire as early as you can. And particularly so if you're in a high stress role or you're working very long hours, because eventually, if it's not already done so, it's going to impact your health. So try and get out as early as possible. Reason number 5 to retire early: once you retire, you get a ton of free time to pursue new hobbies, meet new people, travel to new places. Good example, a good friend of mine retired in his 50s. He now plays tennis a couple of days a week. He does a lot of mountaineering trips. He absolutely loves mountaineering. So over the last 5 years, he's climbed Mont Blanc in Europe. That's the highest mountain in Western Europe. He's climbed the Matterhorn in Switzerland. For those of you who know your mountains, that the Matterhorn's the one on the Toblerone packet. He also volunteers as well. A couple of nights a week, he works in the soup kitchen, cooking, making food for the homeless people, and just sitting there with them and keeping them company and stuff like that, making sure they've got a hot meal. There's a lot to be said for having that free time to be able to go out into the community and volunteer and help people, rather than working for a company where your only function is to really make money for somebody else. I look at my friend and he's amazingly happy. He's so happy that he retired early. He's able to do all that stuff in his free time, and he got to the point where he didn't really enjoy working anymore, and he said, well, I've got the means to get out early, well, why can't I just retire early? And he's never looked back. And I think it's great that not only is he able to pursue activities and hobbies that he wanted to do all his life, he's also able to give that time to the community where he's helping people who are less fortunate than him. There's a lot to be said for doing something like that. That is the 5th reason for retiring early. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope it gave you something to think about. If you enjoyed it, please drop me a like. Stay tuned for more early retirement videos. If you'd like to join me on my early retirement journey, don't forget to click the subscribe button. I can't wait to wrap up work now and just finish and get that redundancy check on the bank so I can start doing the things that I want to do. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll hopefully see you on another video. Take it easy. Cheers. Bye for now.